Good evening, good evening, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us or joining me this evening and taking the first step in getting information about Australia. Thank you, first and foremost. I know that everybody's joined in and we'll get started. There may be people joining as we go, but don't worry if there's anything that you miss out. You guys will get a link to a recording at a later stage, so you can always come back with some questions. So this evening, I'd like to introduce myself for those that haven't already met or spoken to me. I am Nicole Heinze. I am working with Dizon Associates, and we are an immigration law firm. Okay, we're an Australian immigration law firm. We are also an international recruitment company. We are Australian owned by an immigration attorney who is MARA registered. So that means that any information that you get is ensured to be legally, factually correct so that we are able to assist you guys in the best possible way that we can. Okay. We do offer holistic support because we know that the information that you're looking for may differ from one person to the next. Scenarios are different, circumstances are different, outcomes are different, and the reasons why we are here this evening may be different from one person to another. Okay. So the reason why you see holistic support is because the emphasis is on understanding your outcomes and why it is that, or what it is that you're doing here this evening, and how we can possibly assist within that process. Okay. We have proven success. We've celebrated our 15th birthday about a week or so ago. So we have been around for 15 years. We're in our second year currently in South Africa. And we hope to have many, many more years, hopefully with a lot of you guys that are joining this evening. Okay. Like I said, because we are run or because we're owned by an Australian immigration attorney as well as an OMARA registered agent, there is a very large focus on compliance. And the reason for that is not just for the paperwork and for the outcomes or successful outcomes, it is for your protection. Okay. There's a large focus on compliance because what we do is governed by a code of conduct set in place by Australia. Okay. Now, we need to work in accordance to that code of conduct to ensure that what we do represents the best for you guys and what it is that we want to help you with. Okay. And the last thing is that we have employer partnerships. Now, I will be touching on that a little bit later this evening, but the employer partnerships that we have is largely with employers that are based in Australia and that are seeking individuals that we can assist them with internationally for placement of positions within the Australian continent. Now, the reason why we are all here this evening is to hear some of my fantastic jokes, guys. It's fine. You can use them further. Just like, make them your own a little bit because you guys are special, all of you. But also more so to help you guys plan, okay? The biggest step or the biggest step when considering a move from where you call home starts with information. Okay. And you can only consider a possibility of moving if you understand what your options look like, you understand what is required to make a move, and you understand that there are certain things that you need to ask yourself, your wife, your husband, your spouse, your significant other, the girl or guy that you really fancy, or whoever, before you say, yes, this is something I want to get, I want to get started with. Because we are an immigration law firm, we pride ourselves in ensuring that the individuals we work with know that they have options, know that migration and immigration and making the move from your country is something personal. It's something that doesn't just come down to one reason. And we want to play a part in making sure you understand that the reasons you're looking to leave South Africa are reasons why you look into Australia. Okay. So you look at what those factors are and how they benefit you, what your short-term needs are versus what the long-term benefits can be. Okay. So this evening is really about just having information that puts you guys in a position. And a lot of you may be considering Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the EU, the UAE, the moon, for all I know. You guys can be considering multiple countries or locations that you're looking to make the move. And think of this evening as a starting point for all factors to consider when making the move. Okay. It's important that you have this information so that you can use it to your benefit. Now, a big reason as to why a lot of people consider Australia is that Australia has economic and job opportunities. Okay. A lot of people are looking at where South Africa currently is, and I kind of want to hide because it's not great, right? We are setting records for unemployment. We are setting records again for youth unemployment, and we are setting records for crime statistics. So it's, and for those that watch the cricket, the rugby, the crickets, I mean, yo guys, it's fine. We still love them though, because that's what support is, proudly South African. We never stop being South African, even with the losses. But sometimes we consider those losses and we think, yo, do we want to give our kids these losses as well, So people consider, and this is again, this why Australia is why not South Africa. Okay. Why not South Africa? Because of our unemployment, because of the opportunities that we have, especially for those that are joining this evening that have kids. It's one thing for you to struggle as an adult, but statistically looking at the youth unemployment and what opportunities our kids will have in the future, it does not look great. Okay. Now, in comparison to Australia, people, I don't know, don't even want to work. Oop, excuse me. There's a 4% unemployment rate. In February, so in the beginning of the year, there were just over 300 or just under 330,000 job vacancies in Australia. So that is across sectors, across industries, across the board. Okay. There is a higher quality of life. So there is a government board, NPO, that looks at different factors within different countries across the globe, and they rank the countries based on education, income, health, ease to social benefits or social securities, and rank the index of how people live and their happiness index, essentially, by country, or by these different factors. And Australia is the highest, or consistently shows the highest ranking in all those aspects. Australia also has a good access to education for kids, so preschool, primary, high school, as well as tertiary education for kids or for our children. There is a lot of political stability and safety. So my boss, Paul, made a joke last week when he was here in South Africa that the last time they had any kind of political instability was when somebody came with a ship and they were like, hey, this looks like some great land. But other than that, politics is relatively stable in Australia. Okay. Australia is also very multicultural and it's a very inclusive society. So there isn't the thing about, oh, wait, you're that from there, from where, from what? No, it's just maybe you're weird and people don't like you because of your personality. It's not about how you look and how you talk and those things. Okay. Australia is a country built on migrants. So it's kind of hypocritical if they were going to say, oh, but you, whatever. Okay. So a lot of benefits that side that we don't always see here, or we hope to see here in South Africa. Now, when I have discussions with individuals, I like to emphasize the fact of what are your goals? What are your goals? What are your needs? In the short term, what is it that you need to consider in order to understand where you can head in the long run? Okay. Are you looking at options to study in Australia? Are you looking at options to work? Will you be moving by yourself, with your family? What is it that you need to consider logistically in the short term to help the planning process? Okay. If you're studying, have you found a tertiary do you know what you want to, what the career path is for that route? Uh, Employment. Do you know if there's a demand for your skills? Do you know where the demand is for your skills? Do you know that you want to stay in the same sector? Do you want to move from the sector? Do you know what the options are with regards to legalities for employment if you're looking at that route? If you're thinking of moving with your family, have you considered what the costs look like for schooling? Have you considered if there are costs associated with schooling? Have you considered the costs for the actual move itself? All of those things, right? In the long run, are you looking at bringing your family with? Is there options for your family to go with in the long run? What decisions do you make in the short term that affect your family reunification in the long run? Are you looking at a long-term lifestyle change? So are you looking at applying for permanent residency? It's important for when we have these conversations, do you understand what success looks like for you? Okay. I can't help with that. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you are contacting me, contacting whoever else, contacting someone for whatever other country. If you don't understand these factors and what success looks like for you, both in the short term and the long run, it's difficult to be assisted. Okay. If you don't know where you're heading, any road will take you there. Now, when it comes to Australia and making the move, there are different visa options. Okay. You have got general skilled migration. General skilled migration is an independent application for permanent residency. This route does not require a job offer. It is not a direct reflection of the job market. This route shows Australia that you have a value from what you know and what you can contribute to the economy. And it gives you access to live in Australia, work in Australia, have access to social benefits. So your kids can school for free. You've got access to healthcare. You've got access to your pension fund. All the rights and privileges we hope to have in South Africa, you have in Australia through general skilled migration. You have got employer-sponsored visas. Now, I want to pop whoever's bubble is going to pop with this next statement, but sponsorship does not mean financially. Okay. Sponsorship does not mean financially. Sponsorship's got nothing to do with money. Okay. Sponsorship means that as a South African or as a residency holder of whichever country you may be from, you are Zimbabwean, Zimbabwean. If you're from Botswana, you're from Botswana. If you're from Mozambique, you're Mozambican. If you're from Angola, you're Angolan. Wherever. You're from the moon, you're Moonanian. I was going to say Martian. Get my jokes right, man. Wherever you hold residency, wherever you're a citizen of, you have the right to work in that country. As South Africans, we work in South Africa. We've got the right to work in South Africa because it gives us the economic edge to live and survive, maybe thrive. Some of us, those of you that are awesome, let me know what it's like. It gives us the option to work in our own country, the right to work in our own country, okay? If we do not hold residency outside of our country, we cannot work in other countries. That is why we don't have access to work in Zim. We don't have access to work, in our neighboring countries. We don't have access to work in any other country. So applying for jobs in LinkedIn, Indeed, wherever you are applying for jobs, it doesn't get you anywhere because you do not hold the right to work in that country. Okay. Now, what sponsorship does is that an employer sees the value in having you work for them, and they go to the government and they say that they will support your application to get the working rights you need to be able to work for them. Okay, so fantastic. Now you've secured employment, but then what? Pause for dramatic effect. Okay, so employer sponsorship really just means that an employee is supporting your application to get the working rights you need to work for them on a temporary basis. Now, there are options for permanent residency through that, but that again is if you're going to do it independently, general skilled migration, or you wait and see if the employer will sponsor your permanent residency, and it is entirely up to them. Okay, it is not an entitlement that because you've worked for them for 2 years, they will help you get permanent residency. Now, again, just because I mentioned that sponsorship doesn't mean anything financial, the financial discussion is something to be had at a later stage. Okay, that is something that you can discuss with the potential employer if you have got a job offer. Go for gold, but do it respectfully. There are student visas as well. If you are looking to study in Australia, please don't come to me and say, Nicole, I want to study in Australia. What can I study? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you want to study. I don't know what you can study. I don't know what, you know. If you're looking to study in Australia, you need to know what you would like to study, where you would like to study, apply to study, get accepted to study, and only at that point can we assist with the visa work associated with the student visa. Okay. Depending on the level of qualification, that would dictate whether or not your family can go with, whether or not you can work, all of the different associated conditions of that visa. Okay. Now, family and partner visas, this is if you found someone that makes the best jokes in Australia and they're like, you know what, I've always wanted to try. No, let me not go there. They say, you know what, South African, you're great. I love you. Please be my thing forever. Be my penguin, be my partner, be my whatever you want to be for the rest of my life. Now you've gotten a way in, we can apply for a partner visa through your Australian sticky. Okay. But you guys need to either be prospectively engaged or married or going to be married, or you guys need to have gotten married. So it's not just go on whatever kind of apps they are and swipe in whatever kind of direction you swipe. Okay. It needs to be a proper relationship. Now, when we look at eligibility factors, and I'm going to touch a little bit more on working visas and general skilled migration, so your independent visas, the key factors that you need to look into to see and understand if you are eligible is mostly determined by whether or not where on the skilled occupation list your skill set sits. Okay. So your skill and your occupation will determine what kind of visas you are eligible for and how you can position yourself to pursue those visas. Okay. You need to be under the age of 45 for most pathways. And when I say most pathways, that is mostly for permanent residency or having the option to apply for permanent residency. However, after the age of 45, you can still get permanent residency if you're able to secure employment within a DARMA region and that employer is willing to undertake an application that allows you, after 3 years of working with them, to get that permanent residency. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean wait until you turn 45 to then say, Nicole, and now I've decided that I want to go ahead. Okay. This is in those factors, or this is in those scenarios that, you know, where the popo hit the fan and we really need to look at it. But it is, or that option does exist. Up until the age of 55, you can still get permanent residency within DARMA regions. Okay. If that is the case with you, reach out. We can schedule a consultation. We can discuss it. We can focus on it. But I'm not going to touch too much on DARMA. Just so that you know, there is that option. You will need to have an English proficiency test, whether you are going on whatever kind of visa. The English proficiency test shows that you can communicate, okay? It shows that you've got an understanding and a good level that you would be able to get there, understand, work, and be understood as well. Now, another thing is your qualifications and your work experience. Depending on your occupation or your job, there are some jobs that require you to have relevant qualifications. So for instance, an engineer, you can't just say you studied a diploma in social science and for the past 15 years, you've been working as a structural engineer, building the roads of South Africa. Now you want to be seen as an engineer in Australia. It's not going to fly. You need to have a bachelor's in engineering, or we need to be able to show unequivocally that those 15 years you've been building the roads. And let's be honest, if you've been building the roads in South Africa with that diploma, then it makes sense. Okay. So we'll need to look at what the requirements are of your occupation and whether or not you require certain qualifications. There are some pathways that don't always need qualification. They will consider work experience in lieu of that qualification. So it's not always a one size fits all. And I want to emphasize this on everything that I'm saying. Disclaimer, hashtag, steriki, quote, whatever you want to call it. This is a very general information session, okay? To understand your exact pathways, reach out so that we can have the exact conversation. But depending on your qualification, depending on your pathway, that will determine what the requirements are for you and whether or not you actually need qualifications or not. So some people will say, oh, Nicole, but I've been in my position for the past 15 years, but someone's told me I don't qualify because I don't have the relevant qualification. A lot of assessing bodies will see that you are competent within your occupation. You're not going to be doing a job for 15 years and still not know what you're doing, okay? You would have to be completely insane to be doing the same job. You must be working for the best employer in the world if you're doing the same job for 15 years and you don't know what you're doing, okay? So a lot of times it is mandatory for general skilled migration. And for a lot of occupations on the skills shortage list, it's why skill assessment is mandatory is because it shows that you are skilled. It looks at, it looks at your qualifications and your competencies over your work experience. and it proves through Australian standards that you would meet and be able to do the work within the country of Australia. Okay. So it is a mitigating factor for risk for employers if they are looking at you. And a lot of employers will want you to have your skill assessment before they even consider you for working visas and working routes. Now, there are health and character requirements as well. Certain health conditions will immediately disqualify you from general skilled migration and applying independently, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the working route is out. Okay. With a health waiver, we've been able to waive individuals that are HIV positive. We have been able to waive individuals who have had cancer, autism, most of the health conditions that are considered or that would not make the health requirement or the health check when it comes to that process. Okay, so with the working visa, that is still an option. It's just a health waiver that you would need to factor into your planning. Okay. Character requirements. Now, if you've been naughty and you were caught and something happened, that is something that may need to be discussed as well. But character requirements, the character aspect of the application doesn't necessarily mean that you are ruled out of permanent residency. Okay, so there's always, again, a discussion to be had within that aspect. Now, general skilled migration is a points-based system. This means that you need to qualify or you need to have a minimum of 65 points in order to qualify. And points are awarded to your age, your English proficiency, your qualifications, and your education, your work experience, and your work experience must be relevant to the work that you are claiming or the skill you are claiming to have. Okay, so your babysitting experience back then, when you worked as a hostess at wherever or whoever, whatever, if you're applying as an engineer, that doesn't matter. If you're applying as an engineer, we're looking at engineering work experience. If you're applying as a fitter and turner, we're looking at fitting and turning experience. If you're applying as a sales manager, we're looking at that, okay? Work experience needs to be relevant to the occupation which we're claiming to show competency, not everything in a day, okay? Now, points can also be awarded to state and regional sponsorship. So if you are being supported through a state or a region to strengthen your application, there are additional points to be gained there. Okay. Also, if you have an Australian relative, so brother, sister, a cousin, a family line, there are options for them to show or for us to demonstrate that you have ties to Australia and that, you know, it's not just going to be an application of, okay, cool, yeah, I got permanent residency, but I'm never going to come to Australia. We're substantiating that you have ties to the country and a strong chance that you're wanting to stay there and be there for as long as possible. Okay. Now, there are some other factors again, but they are not often or commonly seen in South Africa, so we don't always go into them. But if they stand out, we'll obviously tell you, oh, awesome, you get additional points. Now, the way that the process works is obviously calculating your points to understand whether or not you qualify, getting yourself assessed or getting your skills assessed, passing the English test if it is not a requirement of your assessment itself, submitting an expression of interest. What this means is that you are showing Australia you are interested in being there permanently. Once you get an invitation to apply either to a state or a region, you do so. And once that invitation is received, you can go ahead and you can lodge your permanent visa application. Now, a big factor is that you do need to consider costs. Okay. The reason for this evening is that you plan ahead, and it's not even just our professional fees or our fees. Like I say, you are no obligation to proceed with us. I mean, it would be great. I know you get to hear more of my jokes. And we genuinely care. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. What we want is to see your success. Okay. But ahead of that, we want to ensure that you are aware of what to do and how to do it in order to plan to make sure that we see the success together. Okay. Now, a big factor is cost considerations. Skill assessments are something that you would need to plan for, whether you're wanting to get into the job market, whether you're wanting to apply for permanent residency, and either of those options, right? It's always going to be needed if you're wanting to apply for permanent residency, even if it's not a requirement of a work visa, in whichever case you can proceed. Okay. Now, skill assessments range anywhere from $620 to plus $12,000. 620, those are your accountants, guys. Not that bad. But the 12,000 one is like vets. Okay, so don't worry about that. And then the rest of you guys are in between. Now, your English test as well, like I said, those tests are a requirement of the visa. So you do need to factor that in. And if you guys are like really worried about costs, I don't know what else is on, but they seem to be increasing prices all the time. Their cost is actually currently 6,120 Rand. So their fees have recently increased. Okay. If you are applying through a state or a region, there may be costs, government fees that are associated there. The visa fees itself, even if you're going the working route, remember what I said, sponsorship, and this is what everybody at home says, does not mean anything financial. Okay. Even if you're going the working route, there are costs that the employer by law needs to cover, but your visa is not one of them. Okay, so your employer can say, okay, cool, you're great, you're super cool, we want to have you, but on the condition that you pay for your own visa. Okay, so at flights as well, whatever the case is. So you need to understand that those things factor in. You can see there, relocation, travel, settlement costs. These are things that are part of the application that you need to consider when planning ahead. Now, the common challenges that we see is that people don't always have the right information. They follow what somebody else said. Their cousins, friends, sisters, neighbor once moved to Australia, but for them it was really easy because it went super fast, and they know that one person that helped them. Guys, every single person is unique, whether you're in the same trade, whether you went to the same school, whatever the case is. Every single scenario is unique to itself because of all the different factors that are considered when assessing somebody. Okay, so delaying applications and then the changes in policies from one year to the next is something that adds challenges to individuals not qualifying for points or not understanding that they've misqualified themselves for the points. Struggling to secure job offers. That's when you go and put all your eggs, all of those eggs, you take them and you put them into a basket. You say, I'm only going because I want a job. And then you never get a job. And it's not to say, like I said, it's not to say that there isn't job opportunities. What is stopping you is the right to work in the country. Okay. So, or even not securing a job offer because you haven't done your skill assessment. You don't understand that it is a mandatory requirement of the visa, and a company is not going to take the risk in waiting for you to get your skill assessment done. Okay. So you don't put yourself in a favorable position to secure employment, and then that's what happens, right? Financial pressures. This is again why we want to ensure you know your options, plan A, plan B, plan C, how to financially prepare for this, that, and the next, so that you are aware of what can happen throughout the application. Okay. Misunderstanding eligibility. I had someone this week that went with another migration company, went under the wrong assessing body, got a negative outcome, came back to us and said, oh, yeah. Okay. So understand what your eligibility is, where you and how you can be assessed, under what you're being assessed, why you're being assessed under that pathway, so that you truly understand. Okay, this is your future, whether it's your immediate future or your long-term future. You have every single right to question and understand what it is that you are buying into. Okay. Especially and more so if you are using somebody for assistance. Okay. I want to emphasize that. And I do that proudly as a South African because I feel that is the biggest thing we're losing in South Africa is the right for us to know what we are buying and where we are heading with our future. Okay. You guys have the right to ask questions. You've got the right to know. You've got the right for all of these things. Okay. Make use of that right, please. But just don't overdo it with me, please. And no, I'd say that then, like, with all respect, if you have questions, ask them. You can do so. Okay. And then the biggest thing is falling for scams and unregulated agents. There are a lot of companies that use or pay someone for Amara affiliation, but they have no real standing and no real legal resources in order to combat certain challenges and difficulties that may arise throughout an application. Okay, so always verify. As somebody pressures you into proceeding, that's a big red flag, guys. Emirates, they're not going to stop flying. What's it? I was going to say fly Safe, but they don't fly to Australia. They definitely don't fly to Australia, okay? Lyft, they also don't go to Australia. But your other international carriers, none of them are going to stop flying. You're not going to lose the opportunity from one day to the next, okay? Don't be pressured into something. And if it is such a quick turnaround, then questionable, okay? Put yourself in a position that you understand and know of what is best for you. Okay. Now, I have this here, but I never like going too much into it because if you don't understand how we can support you from just having watched the webinar, then it doesn't matter what else I say further here. But essentially, like I say, for us, the most important thing is understanding what your goals are, giving you guys realistic keyword, hashtag, slash, whatever you want to use there, realistic options and giving you the power to decide what it is you want to do with your future. Okay. Again, pause for dramatic effect. Everybody, and on that note, I'm going to end the session this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said right at the beginning, if there's anything that you missed, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, reach out to me. Ask what questions you have. If right now is not the right time for you to make the move, get the information you need to put yourself in the best position for success in the future. Okay. Have a wonderful evening, and I do hope to assist you guys in one way or another to get through this. Okay. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.